Hi everyone. Hi, this is Vet, and today I'm going to show you how I mount one of the copies of an original piece of artwork. The original size is 16 by 20, but I had it copied on photo paper, and it's been reduced down to e 8.5 by 11. Um, this is not the only way to mount your pictures, but it's one way that it's quick and easy that I've found that works for me. I am going to be using some pre-cut mat that has my top matting, and it also has a mat board underneath, and I buy them in a stack so that I don't have to cut them. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the back mat, and I'm going to line it up where I think it will fit best inside the opening of my matted cut board. And you can use a ruler to measure the inside and the outside, but what happens is when you're reducing it, you don't always get the exact measurements, so I usually just kind of eyeball it to see which works for me. Sometimes my horizon lines are a little bit wonky, so I need to make sure that it fits inside this opening. And you can see, even though this is cropped down, the whole top of the head is actually cut off. And if you take this away, this is actually where it's cut. So what I'm going to do is move this down just a little bit so that it goes right up against the edge. So you can see where it's cut here. This is where I want the edge of my mat board to land. Then I want to check my sides. You can still see a little bit of white there. So what I'm going to do is very gently move that up, and then I'm going to lay it back down. Making sure that all of my sides are touching, because that's going to be critical when I get ready to glue this down. Okay. So that looks pretty even to me. So now I'm going to hold these together, and I'm going to look at it straight on, because when it's laying down you're looking at an angle, and sometimes it's kind of skewed. So the next thing I'm going to do is lay that down. Take this top part off, and I'm going to use a pencil to make little registration marks. And I do want to say the outside, make sure your hands are clean, because you don't want to get fingerprints. If you're painting, get paint marks on your color print or your color copy. And all I need is the corners done at this point. So I'm going to lift this up. And you can see I have registration marks. Make sure that when you move your picture out of the way, that it's not upside down. It needs to fit this way, not this way. You put it back. So I'm going to very carefully move this in the right direction. Okay. And I'm going to put, you can use deli paper. I have some scrap white paper here that I'm going to use to put the glue on the back. There is spray that you can use where you can spray the whole thing. Of course, you'd have to go outside and do that, but they have screen printing spray, they have basting spray, they have permanent spray. Make sure that it doesn't have a yellowing agent or that it's temporary, because you want this to stay permanently. I'm going to use a permanent glue stick because I just find it's much easier, then I don't have to go outside, because it's quite cold right now here where I live. The main areas that I'm going to do is going to be around the edges. I'm just going to put a little small X. I don't want any thick of my glue to build up in here. I'm not trying to get a texture on the other side, but I do want to make sure that it holds. You can also use two-sided tape if you have that. So there's a lot of different glues that you can use, and I'm not that concerned about this being archival, it is a copy. And I have found that even in my 50 years of drawing and painting, it has held up pretty good. And again, I'm not promoting any particular brand. I just happen to like the Scotch brand because it is permanent. And then I'm going to put an X here, put a little more in the corners because that's where it's going to mainly stick. I put a little bit on the edge so that when I roll it, the edges will stay down. This is more or less to just help reinforce it. So now I'm going to lift this up. I'm touching where there's no glue. I'm going to bring this back over. And I'm going to start with my edges at the bottom. I'm going to lay it right in the registration marks that I've made. Before I press it down, I'm going to double check to make sure that I didn't put it upside down. Yes, I can still see part of the head there. I'm going to start at this edge and very gently press. I'm using a printing roller. I don't use this for anything else except for rolling so that I do not put any ink on this, but it's great for smoothing out your edges. And again, you want to make sure that this is nice and clean and it has not previously been used for inking. And I'm pressing in one direction when I initially do this to make sure that it sticks and I don't get any bubbles. So I'm going all the way up off the edge. And then I'm going to turn it around the other way. And I can see where it's lifting just a little bit here because when I put my circles, I put it kind of in this area. I'm not that concerned about it peeling away, but if you wanted to, you could either use the edge of this or you could use a paintbrush. Okay. Now you see how here, you may not be able to see, there's a little bit of glue that is bubbling up. So that's the risk that you take. And I have a paper towel here. That's why it's good to use either a paintbrush or something very thin so that when you're rolling it, the glue does not get on top of your artwork. So I'm going to press in this direction and it's starting to come out. So I'm using my little paper towel here and wipe that up and press the edges down. Again, it's important that you don't get any glue because you don't want glue marks on your painting. Okay, I'm going to wipe this little edge. There's a little bit of glue on this edge here, and I don't want that to interfere with my gluing. Because when I put my top mat on, I do not want to put any glue directly on my artwork. I'm only going to put glue around the edges on the outside. So again, I'm using my stick glue. I wanted to make sure that it glues really well here, so there's no slippage. I'm doing a light coating here, adding gentle pressure to build up any glue, but I don't want a big clump of glue. So I'm using a very light touch all the way around, a little bit here on the top, and I'm just using some choppy marks. And then down the edge. Again, nice big juicy circles on the edges here on the corners. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is move this white piece that's underneath so you can see how I'm lining up the edges. Again, I'm going to line these two on the bottom. And then very gently press on the edges before I use my rollers to make sure it's lined up. Because once you stick it down, If it's even, it's going to be a lot of work trying to get it back off. So again, check my roller, and I'm going to just press and roll right across the bottom, like so. And then up the edges, because remember, the only part that's going to get glued is along here. There should not be any glue seeping out this way. And then I'm going to press the other side, rolling back and forth. Okay, then I'm going to turn it around and then press. And the reason that I turn it is so that I'm not reaching over, straining, trying to get the right amount of pressure. It's better to move the artwork than try and climb up on the table and move your body. I also like using this stick glue because it goes on really quick and it dries really quick. If I was to use like an Elmer's glue that's nice and liquidy, number one, it wets your paper. It takes forever to dry and it might ooze and seep in areas that you do not want. If you're using spray glue, you would spray directly on the back of your piece, but you have to make sure that when you lay it down, it's perfectly in the spot that you want. Because once it sticks, it's there forever. It's going to be very hard to get up. So now, I'm really happy with the way that it's set. I'm going to look at it straight on again, because I'm laying it, so I'm working at a flat angle. I like the way that it looks. I like the way that the composition is done. You can sign it if you wanted to, because my signature is actually below the line. You can re-sign it here, because you're not going to be looking underneath anyway, if you wanted to, or you can just leave it as it is. The next session I will tell you what to put on the back for identification. Again, thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon.